When I looked at the Z1 version of the Ally, I hoped it would offer something to compete with the new Steam Deck OLEDs. Not only is that not the case, but it creates a class of handheld of its own. Unfortunately, the ROG Ally's less powerful variant would have made more sense 2 years ago. That's not saying there isn't a use case for this version of the Ally, because for some people, this makes a lot of sense for what they're looking for, especially since you now have more options than ever in choosing what handheld PC experience you want. You're getting much of the same in the Z1 model as the Extreme one on paper. From its bright 120Hz screen and RGB-laden thumbsticks on the front, to the ROG iVent and lackluster ergonomics on the back. You're not missing out on any of the physical features the Ally Extreme has going on. They are visually indistinguishable from each other besides the stickers, which actually probably creates a problem when people are trying to buy them on Best Buy's website because they look exactly the same. We've had a number of instances when people have screamed to us, the ROG Ally's on sale for $400, and it turns out they're hoping it's the fast version, and it turns out it's the one you probably shouldn't buy. Internally, much is the same too. The Z1 Ally has the same 40-watt-hour battery, 16 gigs of memory, and dual fan cooling solution. You only start to see the differences between the two when looking at the AMD Z1 APU inside the less expensive model. Compared to the Z1 Extreme, the Z1 has 2 fewer CPU cores and 8 fewer GPU cores, which is a big deal, while also having clock speeds that boost to around 200 MHz slower than the Extreme version. Those loss of cores account for a 2/3 loss in total system performance, going from 8.6 teraflops, close to that of a PS5, down to 2.8 teraflops, only just slightly faster than a base PS4. Unfortunately, the drop in performance was much worse than the numbers in reality. While you can run the same games on both systems, the Ally Extreme will always have an edge over the Z1 in every instance. Many reports leading up to the release of the Z1 chip indicated that it would be slower than its Extreme counterpart, and it's also to be expected, especially of a system that costs $100 less. But what wasn't expected is just how vast the performance drop can be. It's sort of like the difference between gaming chairs and actual ergonomic chairs. While they both look similar in the chair shape, they hold wildly different characteristics, which recently my employee Kyler has been complaining about how his back hurts all day. Both to help him and not have to hear him complain anymore, I'm giving him a brand new C7 chair courtesy of our sponsor for today's video, FlexiSpot. Kyler's old chair was a big clunky gaming chair that really did not support his back in a way necessary for extended sitting during work. Now that he's in the C7, his back is supported by their self-adaptive dynamic system, which detects subtle changes in your posture and sitting position to adjust the lumbar support cushion to ensure constant support. I did borrow it for a little bit to do this video, but he's gonna get it back right after. The C7 also features adjustable 4D armrests, which can slide front to back, rotate left to right, and be raised up and down to ensure that your arms are always supported when you want them to be, and the rest can be moved out of the way. The back of the C7 is constructed out of a resilient and breathable mesh to offer great ergonomic support while allowing your back to breathe. The unmatched resilience and elasticity of the back mesh will keep you sitting comfortably for hours. The seat of the C7 is a sloped waterfall designed to relieve leg pressure, allowing for a more comfortable and healthy sitting position. The seat is also able to be adjusted in both seat depth and sitting angle. Coming in at 20 inches, the seat is spacious enough to even cross your legs. Designed with accommodation in mind, the C7 supports up to 300 pounds and people of all heights, coming in both a foam seat and mesh seat option. FlexiSpot kept sitting professionals in mind while developing this chair with the goal of delivering a comfortable and supported sitting experience to those who work long hours seated. For those out there that want a comfortable chair but maybe want something a little bit more simple, FlexiSpot also offers their ergonomic C6 office chair as well as the C3 Essential office chair. To change the way you sit, click the link in the description and use code C730 to purchase a FlexiSpot C7 chair and save $30. Try FlexiSpot with confidence with a 30-day free return period. A big thank you to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. But let's get back to the difference between the Z1 and the Z1 Extreme. Demanding games showed the most considerable performance drop-off between the two different processors. We saw frame drops from 60 to 40 FPS or lower depending on the title. For example, Outer Worlds could hit 45 FPS at 15 watts TDP at mostly medium settings on the Ally Extreme. But on the Z1 Ally, the game struggled to stay around 25 FPS FPS at the same settings. When boosting the wattage to 30, the Ally Extreme was hitting 60 FPS even in outdoor environments. You'd expect something close to 50 frames on the Z1 Ally, but it could only hover around 35 frames in towns and closer to 20 frames in the open world. We even dropped the game to its lowest settings possible and FSR2 set to performance, but the only time we got close to 60 FPS was indoors or staring at a wall outside. Sure, the game is playable, but it looks like complete crap. It was apparent that optimizations played the biggest part in the performance schism during our testing. When we tested out Subnautica, a deck-verified game, we saw frame rates mostly stay close to 40 FPS at 15 watts. Boosting the power draw to 30 watts saw it get about 51 frames, but it never crossed the 60 frame threshold, even with settings on low. On the Ally Extreme, we performed much better at 15 watts, with frame rates staying near 60 on medium settings. Boosting it to 30 watts just made it that more performant. Outer Worlds and Subnautica aren't too demanding, as the most demanding game we benchmarked was Cyberpunk 2077. Running the benchmarks on the Ally Extreme with the Steam Deck presets on, FSR 2.1 set to ultra performance and TDP boosted to 40 watts while plugged in, we hit about 52 frames on average. Running the same settings on the Z1 Ally produced an average result of about 38 frames. Based on these results, it's clear that the Z1 chip does not improve performance at higher TDPs like the Z1 Extreme can, mainly resulting in diminishing returns. We were able to corroborate these findings when testing control. At 15 watts TDP on the Z1 Extreme, the frame rate usually stays close to 40 to 45 FPS, with some dips during combat scenarios. Compared to the Z1 Ally, you're losing out on at least 10 frames with considerable drops during combat. Boosting to 30 watts or more does get you close to 40 frames out of combat, but frame drops and stuttering are even more dramatic. It's not as bad as Outer Worlds, which is the least optimized of the bunch, but I could not see myself doing a full playthrough without some frustration. On the other end of the spectrum, the performance gap closes. Less demanding games like Worldless or Celeste can have high frame rates on the Z1 chip, but games like these don't require much to reach 60 FPS. That's a good thing for those into emulation. Anything at or below a GameCube game should run perfectly fine on the Z1 Ally, although you should be wary of Wii U and PS2 titles since the processor may not be fast enough to run them well. The Z1 Ally has no significant benefits regarding low TDP gaming either. You think with a less powerful chip, Asus would have optimized the APU to be more battery efficient like the Steam Deck. That's not the case at all. You get similar or slightly better battery stamina on the Z1 Ally compared to the Ally Extreme by around 20 or 30 extra minutes max. It's disappointing to see the gulf between the two processors here, but it's even more disappointing when you look at how it compares to a Steam Deck. We tested all of the same games, and to our surprise, the Steam Deck outperformed the Z1 Ally in 15 watt performance. It's not a massive leap like you see with the Z1 Ally and the Ally Extreme, as it's usually less than a 10 frame difference, but games ran far smoother even before turning on the game profiles that optimize it further. This is likely because of Windows, since SteamOS lets the deck be far more efficient, but it still matters when a prior generation APU is outperforming its successor years later. And it matters even more when you start looking at how much this thing sells for. I do bring the price up because Asus recently did drop the cost of the Z1 Ally shortly after the Steam Deck OLEDs arrived. Before the Steam Deck refresh, the Z1 Ally was only $100 less than the Ally Extreme at $600. I would have been okay with this if the APU had been more powerful than the Steam Deck. But it's not. This is why that I'm glad Asus is willing to drop the price even more. So far, the lowest price for the Z1 Ally has been about $350. The same price as a 64GB LCD Steam Deck through the Steam store, but at the time of recording, the price has gone back up and fluctuates from $400 to $450, which is how much a 256 or 512GB LCD Steam Deck goes for. And while you can still justify buying a Z1 Ally for this price, once those smaller Steam Decks run out, you're still paying more for a handheld PC that's now the least powerful one on the market. Our suggestion when considering the Z1 Ally comes down mostly to the price you can get it for. Do not buy this for $600. Do not even buy this for $500. You need to wait until it's at least $399, And even then, like, still very much consider the Steam Deck. It will be slightly more expensive because you'll have to buy an SD card for the 64 gig Steam Deck, but you're gonna get better performance out of it. Even then though, you can find open box deals for even less. We found an open box Z1 Ally for $300 at Best Buy. Those come and go depending on the store, but that is a far more reasonable price for this device. $300 makes a ton of sense. But if you want a decently powerful handheld PC, don't get the Z1 Ally. You're better off getting a Steam Deck OLED, an Ally Extreme, or if you're considering the Ally Extreme, we'd even recommend getting the Legion Go, which you can watch our review of that right up there.